This is bigger than you, Peter.
Hello and welcome to Brand X Reviews. We've just been to see the new Spider-Man film, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Was it quite amazing? What did you think?
I liked it.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. We'll do the basic non-spoilers first and then go into spoilers a little bit later on.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I just want to kick this first off by...
review is brought to you by Romulan Ale.
Yeah, well, obviously...
Illegal in the Federation, but you can get hold of a can here.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was it's Core's birthday today, obviously, so we unveiled the happy birthday pants. But it was Buffalo's birthday, so the happy birthday pants. These are Topher's pants, these left.
Yeah, I wish he'd kind of washed them first.
Yeah, they're kind of a bit dirty, but these are the ones that got thrown in my face in the last video, so... Revenge! Skidders all over his face.
No! Bastard!
But anyway, review anyway, let's kick this off. So.
Yeah, basically this picks up very close from the original Amazing Spider-Man. Kind of continues along a lot of the themes from the first film. I mean, the first film seems pretty complete into itself, but it does pick up a lot of plot hooks, usually about the death of Captain Stacy in the first one and the death of his parents. Kind of gets investigated a little bit. And I personally thought it was kind of clever way they kind of tied it together with some of the comments that were made.
There's a bit as well where it kind of showed flashbacks, but I don't think he didn't say that in the first one when Captain Stacy got killed. He didn't say I appreciate what you're doing, but promise me I'll leave my daughter alone. I don't want to get involved in this.
No, it's pretty close to what was said in the first film.
Did he say that in that film?
Yeah, because it's I was wrong, the city does need you, but you'll get enemies.
Right.
They'll come after you. Basically, throughout this film, he's haunted by the image of Dennis Leary in the cops.
Filmed him as well, didn't they?
Yeah. It's not archive footage. It's he'll look around and see him riding in the passenger seat of a police car, even though it's not him. But obviously, kind of the thought of what he's promised is kind of there and eating at him, which is the main source of the conflict between him and Gwen Stacy in the film. Basically, yeah, it's kind of an odd film. It builds very slowly, but it's not a slow-paced film, but it kind of builds up to what's happening. It's not it begins with a big villain all ready to go. It just builds on the kind of plot arcs of the first film, what happened to his parents, the fact that Norman Osborn is dying, which is also referred to in the first film, because that's where Kurt Connors works. And kind of his promise to Captain Stacy at the end of the first one. We did see it in 3D.
Yeah, the 3D effects were pretty good.
Yeah, Captain America Winter Soldier was a better film. I liked it better. Well, this one's very close behind. But as far as a 3D film goes, you wouldn't have missed much by skipping the 3D showing of Captain America. This time, I am glad I saw it in 3D. This was definitely filmed in 3D, even when it's just two characters just talking back and forth. Yeah. You can tell it's 3D. There's kind of depths to the picture, and they kind of come out the screen a bit at you.
I think there's also bits CGI as well. I think when they do a lot of CGI, that tends to be more effective. So.
Certainly, as you've probably seen from the trailers, where he's fighting Electro, and there's bolts of lightning coming at you, and webs flying and stuff. It really comes out of the screen at you. A lot more than, say, some of the Avengers films, which have been more 3D conversions rather than proper, shot in 3D. That more converted them into 3D later on a computer. This is this was obviously meant for 3D. Kind of like the first film. So if you watch the first film, I didn't see it at the cinema actually. The first one, I just saw it in DVD. But there's a lot of parts where I thought, in 3D this would probably look pretty good, and certainly watching this film, you get that impression.
The CGI is still a little bit ropey, but I mean, I think it's justifiable. I'm not really into CGI, but I think it's justifiable because there's no way you could have a stuntman doing the stuff Spider-Man's doing in this, and if you did, it'd be pretty much like the 70s, TV movies that they did.
Yeah, they don't just CGI everything though, which is the good thing. You do get a feeling of the being real people at various points, just with CGI added in. which kind of works.
I know from watching the extras on the Blu-ray of the first film, a lot of the stuff, the stunts, when Spider-Man's, like, say, swinging across the street, in some cases it actually was done for real, just to give it a sense of authenticity. Like, the bit where in the film, in the first one, he swings it kind of, when he's just getting started and he hits that bus and he kind of rolls along the side of it, that was done with a stuntman. There was nothing CGI really about that. But, so I mean, it's kind of
just like little things like that that kind of stop it just making you feel like you're watching
a computer game.
Yeah.
Or the original trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, I like the original trilogy, but I must admit, the stuff's really come along in these.
Yeah, natural.
And I also like this Peter Parker a lot better than I like Tobey Maguire.
Andrew Garfield, yeah, he's a good actor.
Which is partly the fact that I've never really been a fan of Tobey Maguire or Kirsten Dunst, which is what I kind of had against the first.
Yeah, same here.
Also, they've kind of done one good thing that kind of separates it from the first trilogy. No J. Jonah Jameson anywhere to be seen.
Yeah.
He's referenced he's around because he's basically a few jokes about it. But they don't try and recast another J. Jonah Jameson and, retread that same ground. I mean, yeah, it's revealed that he sells photos of himself to the Bugle. But that's really all you needed. You didn't need them to retread the exact same room again.
Yeah, I mean the last guy were pretty spot on, weren't they? I think they'd be hard pressed to find anyone.
Yeah, so like I said, this guy, I certainly buy him as Peter Parker better.
He's
in
funny
some
as
ways,
well.
he's a little bit too good looking in some ways, but he also kind of sells the geeky sense of humour that Spider-Man's got, which is very. I mean, in the comics, it's supposed to be partly kind of how he deals with the fact that. Well, basically, he's up against guys that could squash him literally like a bug, so he uses humour as a way of dealing with the fact that he's shitting himself half the time, and also as a way of putting them off balance because they're so frustrated and annoyed with him that they can't think straight.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was his Ultimate Spider-Man, but one of the times when he fights the Kingpin, even though he looks like a big fat guy, he's actually 90% muscle. There's only a minor amount of him that's actually fat. And he kicked Spider-Man's ass kind of the first time, but the next time around he basically winds him up. He's like, right, I've got some fat jokes. And he's basically going through all these really bad fat jokes. And basically until he's just got the guy so enraged that he's not thinking straight and he kicks his ass. Which is kind of basically how he fights. So they got that spot on.
I wonder if they could do a Kingpin in a Spider-Man film. I know it was Daredevil kind of the property to it. But I think Daredevil's gone back to Marvel now, so maybe Kingpin has as well. I'm not quite sure.
I don't know. I mean, Kingpin is somebody that started off in Spider-Man, but then he kind of migrated over to Daredevil.
Yeah.
I think they're going for his more spectacular rogues gallery, the kind of the Vulture and the Doc Ock and all that kind of stuff. The very kind of the Rhino and Electro and basically the really colourful, larger than life ones. The Kingpin's really cool, but he's not exactly he's just basically a criminal kingpin.
Well, there's the Rhino as well was in this film. I thought from the trailer that he was going to be at the beginning of the film, but
yeah, we won't give out any spoilers. But yeah, they kind of trick you because he's right at the end of the film.
Yeah,
he's basically the last thing before the credits. It's kind of and here he's fighting the Rhino. We'll go into why he's fighting him when we go into spoilers, but. That was nice. I know some people are oh, well, why are they going for the armoured suit version of Rhino? And I must admit, in some ways, it looked a little bit stupid, did the armoured suit.
Yeah, not very tactical, were it?
But what I would say, and this is the most important thing, it might have looked a little bit stupid, but a guy in a Rhino suit would have looked fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, as it is in the comics, it wouldn't quite
Some things work in the comics, they will not work in a film.
Yeah, I mean, Electro himself, they've had to
Yeah, again, they've gone more for the Ultimate Spider-Man kind of feel. To how, ironically, they've also gone more to the Ultimate Aunt May because in some ways she doesn't seem quite as old and as doddery as she does in some of the earlier trilogy. Which again, she's a bit more. She's not just a kindly old woman all the time in Ultimate Spider-Man. She's a bit younger and she's working two jobs to kind of make ends meet kind of thing. So they've kind of gone more to that line. In these films, which I think has kind of worked for it.
I think what it is the guy who directed the original trilogy, what's his name, Sam Raimi. He was more a fan of the 60s and 70s Spider-Man, so I think they got everything out of that. And I think by the time they got into doing things like Venom, that wasn't really his thing, but it was more Avi Arad, the producer, who wanted to do that. I think now, with these new films, they're kind of doing the more recent things. It did have the original 60s series, 60s series
Yeah, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
But that's like his ringtone on his phone, which is quite funny.
Yeah, I don't think
it's like
yeah.
You're like, what the hell?
Whistling it at one point as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite funny.
That's like, they've used that throughout. Like, it started in the 60s with the cartoon series.
Though he does reference the 60s, because when he's talking about Jameson, one of the better jokes that got like a genuine chuckle out of me was they're like, no, Jameson pays me a perfectly fair wage. If this was still 1961.
Yeah. And there was a reference as well when he doesn't have Jonah Jameson in the film, but
yeah, you kind of like see him fire off an email,
yeah.
Which is like, this is like a picture of Spider-Man, and there's an invoice for it. But don't you think he's like more of a good guy kind of thing? He just gets a message back, and you just see the heading, which is wrong in like caps, and it's like just in that it's like just 10 seconds of the film. It's all you needed of J. Jonah Jameson. It just summed up his personality perfectly.
Yeah, it was well handled as that, because
it was kind of like the first film not retreading the actually catching up with the guy who killed his Uncle Ben. I mean, yeah, because he goes looking for the Uncle Ben killer, but they don't try and remake the scene where he like confronts him in the warehouse like they did in the original one.
Yeah.
And just like they kind of make a nod to the wrestling ring, but they don't redo the wrestling ring. Do you know that Sam Raimi thinks he's like a masked wrestler to get the Spider-Man thing, but in this he just like falls down into like a disused wrestling thing. He sees this like poster on the wall, this guy in a red mask.
It's more of a nod to...
Yeah, like I say, it's a nod to it without redoing it.
Yeah.
Which I think is one good thing of the Spectacular Spider-Man, kind of... The Amazing Spider-Man, rather.
Yeah. Well, I think we were going for about, over 10 minutes now. We're probably getting into some spoilers, I think.
Yeah, we're going to go into spoilers, and at the end we're also going to talk about the after-credits scene, which isn't technically to do with Spider-Man, but we'll leave that as a surprise at the end of the film to try and... the end of the video to try and lure you into watching all of it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. In fact, maybe we should do that after the credits or something. But no, we're not Marvel.
We're not that evil.
No. But, starting off with spoilers, I guess. Like I say, the Rhino thing, I kind of assumed, I don't know why.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be like, the little thing that he fights at the start.
Yeah.
And he sort of does, because he fights him before he is the Rhino. He fights him when he's just a thug.
Yeah,
because he's driver. He's the driver of the... You basically get the impression he's a thug, but he's the one actually driving the truck, trying to steal these things from Oscorp. And you also see Matt Dillon, the guy who becomes Electro before he becomes Electro.
Matt Dillon? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of... the
I was going to say, God, have I misremembered the name? It's like, no, I'm pretty sure I got it right.
Right. No, it was Max.
Max Dillon.
Matt Dillon's an actor.
Matt, damn it!
Non-word remembering motherfucker. There we go.
It's my birthday, I'm allowed to forget names.
We say Matt Dillon wasn't in the film.
Max Dillon,
Yeah,
alright, yes. Fucking close enough.
Right. So, there's that. And, he's basically gets captured at the beginning, does the guy that's the Rhino. And you don't really see him for the rest of the film. I knew that was one issue a lot of people said about this. It's got too many villains in it. It's going to be like
Spider-Man like I say, it doesn't really have the Rhino in it.
Not the case, it's not the
which
case.
Is kind of good, because the Rhino has always been this B-list villain. You couldn't write a story around him unless he was just a dumb muscle to be in the background, because he's not... I mean, that's basically what he is. He kind of embraces it. He's just like, he is a dumb muscle. You're like...
Yeah.
You pay him to smash open a bank vault for you or something.
I'm not a big fan of the actor. Is that Paul Giamatti as well? I don't know, he's alright, but he's usually the same kind of like shouty, sort of sleazy, sometimes a bad guy, sometimes he's not, but tends to play the same character all the time.
But then again, I think he's kind of pretty good for the Rhino, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a bit like, I can't remember the name of the actor, that Deuce Bigelow, male gigolo actor. What was the actor's name? Was it Roy Schneider? Or
yeah,
Roy?
I think so.
Yeah, not Roy Scheider, because that's the guy of Jaws. See, I remember names, so there we go. that alright with
Yeah,
you?
but you also don't remember how like tarantulas get killed in Bond.
Oh
films,
yeah,
so.
they're not going to get the reference. We'll have to explain that if we're going to hear. But anyway, the other characters that are in the film. This one has Norman Osborn in it as well. You didn't really see him in the first one, but he's in this one. He's played by what's the name of the actor? I can't remember his name, but he was in the Bourne Identity.
You see, I'm not a pussy. I don't look things up. I just try and remember and get them wrong.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
For comedic, potential.
But yeah, he's in it quite a bit. Is the at the beginning is Norman Osborn.
Yeah, basically he's not the villain of this. He kind of dies, or at least appears to die. Basically, with it being Norman Osborn, you can't be 100% sure. Although, again, I guess it could be a case of we don't want to retread the first films by having him fighting.
I think that was it, yeah.
Because, I mean, alright, yes, they did have Harry in the first three films. But in some ways, he wasn't really the bad guy, because he was kind of a bit between good guy and bad guy.
He's a tragic hero, basically.
Yeah, because he kind of, like, teams up with him sort of at the end when they're fighting Venom, as I recall.
Chris Cooper, that's the actor that plays Norman Osborn. He's getting old a bit as well. I think he's like in his 60s now, so I think if they did kind of roll, even if they brought him back from like the dead, I think that if they did that, he'd be too old and too kind of tired really to be a Green Goblin, I guess. So, and they've already kind of started the Green Goblin off as Harry Osborn, so...
However, I got the impression that basically what Harry does to become the Green Goblin, Norman's already tried. Because basically you see the guy on his deathbed and he's like really messed up. However, he's got these really long talon-like fingernails, which look really weird. It's like, well, what kind of weird genetic disease causes that?
Yeah.
And you find out at the end when Harry does the same thing, he injects himself with the venom from the spiders that gave Spider-Man his powers. He gets really long, like, fucked up talon-like nails.
Mm.
So I'm wondering if, they're going to revisit that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of subtle little things get revisited in this. Like in the first one, whenever the subject of Richard and May Parker, Mary Parker, Peter Parker's parents, whenever they get mentioned, Uncle Ben and Aunt May they get a little bit funny about it. And you kind of think at the time, well, they're being a bit funny about it. I mean, okay, fair enough, it's like his parents, it's obviously something that's going to like upset him. But they seem a bit too cagey about it. Like, they don't really want to talk about it at all for some reason.
Well, we knew there was something, didn't we? We just didn't know exactly what it was.
And also there's like references to like, when they're talking to Kirk Connors, it's like, yeah, well, you know what happened to like Richard Parker and you weren't being all like, morally outraged then, so I don't think it's a little bit too late for you now.
Yeah.
In this, you find out basically what happens to them. You find out that the FBI were investigating them and like thought that he'd stolen these government secrets at Peter Parker's dad. And initially, he's like really angry because he like thinks he's like his dad was a traitor kind of thing and like abandoned him.
That was the party line, wasn't it?
Yeah. But he finds out through like the course of the film that his father was actually trying to do the right thing and trying to go on the run from Oscorp so he could blow the lid off this whole spider venom thing.
The whistleblower, basically.
And basically, he also says that probably the reason that Oscorp hasn't been experimenting with this stuff is basically they use like human DNA with the spider DNA to make these spiders, which are what bit Peter and gave him his powers. But it wouldn't work for just anybody because he used his own DNA. His bloodline. So Peter would be like perfectly compatible with it, where somebody else isn't.
I thought, isn't that kind of putting his son in danger, though, technically?
Yeah, but I kind of got the impression that he thought he was going to be,
exclusive and not known about. They wouldn't know that.
They would have no idea that this was, the case.
Yeah. So I think that kind of beyond that, because it does show as well, right at the beginning of the film, it shows them on a plane when they're trying to escape on like a private plane.
They don't specifically say this in the film, but in the comics they would do with the CIA, and I definitely get the feeling that's where they're going here, because he's got like a secret lab in this like abandoned subway tunnel and stuff.
Yeah, I got that impression. That's kind of what I got out of it, anyway.
They don't specifically say, he was working with the government, but that's definitely the impression you get.
Yeah. But the film pretty much starts out with a flashback to them, and it shows more, because at the beginning of the first one you see the parents panicking, they take young Peter Parker to the auntie and uncle, and that's kind of all you know. In this one you actually see what kind of led up to that, and then kind of beyond that, how they died on the plane in the plane crash.
Yeah, and that the FBI came around to house like sometime after, like questioning Ben and May. And basically they were like, yeah, he's obviously done a runner with these secrets, and you know.
Because it showed Richard Parker that's Spider-Man's father, on the plane, uploading files to a computer which you didn't really know what it was. It later turns out it's a computer in pretty much like a bunker type thing.
Yeah. The only thing I didn't quite understand is they seem quite desperate to upload the files to this Roosevelt, as they call it. We won't spoil everything, but basically it makes sense in the context of the film when you watch it. But apparently nobody came along and picked those files up, so I'm not quite sure whether they were that desperate to get them uploaded, as soon as they could have theoretically just sat there for like ever and nobody would have known about them.
Yeah, because I mean, like, Peter Parker only really kind of picks up on it kind of by accident. I don't think it was their intention for him to find it, and also it was a bit coincident that he got bitten by the spiders that could only have worked with him. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a comic book film, so we can forgive it a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, they also kind of bring up in this one, which was never hinted at in the first one, that Peter Parker and Harry Osborn know each other.
Yeah. When
they were little. They do a good job of establishing it in this film, but I was a bit surprised because it never even gets mentioned in the first one.
Yeah.
That was one of the few things that wasn't really well hinted at to me. It was kind of very like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, all of a sudden Peter Parker knows Harry Osborn, and they're good friends. Well, haven't seen each other for about 8 years or something.
Yeah, because basically Harry's got like a lot of abandonment issues because his dad like sent him off and stuff.
And that's a big thing between them, because in a way they've both been abandoned by the parents, so that kind of pushes them together as friends, I guess. But because
that's kind of why Peter seeks out Harry when he comes back when his dad's dead, because he's like, you were there for me.
Kindred spirits.
Yeah. You get the impression they knew each other when they were like 9, 10, 12 kind of thing. You know, like fairly young.
Yeah. I mean, the development as well of the Green... I mean, we're talking about Green Goblin anyway, but I'll just kind of say to start, there's really 3 ways you can do a Green Goblin in a film. You can do it as kind of the sort of Power Rangers style they did in the original, with a sort of mask, the kind of static mask. You can have, as it is in the comics, with like kind of pretty much like a Halloween mask.
Which wouldn't work.
Yeah, or you can have it as that's his real face. So we can
they kind of when basically he's like a guy in an armoured suit and that's his actual like face is kind of screwed up. He's got like slightly pointed ears and like an insane grin like always on his face.
I liked it, to be honest. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
It looked good. I mean, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. I didn't mind the original. I mean, I like Willem Dafoe. It's kind of a shame they had to cover his, because he had a pretty good face, Green Goblin face, without even having to make an effort. Willem Dafoe has a menacing face. Anyway.
Yeah, basically, if you want to look, anybody who says they should stick exactly to the original comic, they should look at the 90s Captain America.
Yeah.
They reproduced his suit perfectly, exactly as it is in the comics, and it looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
It really looks stupid. Now, they did it in like Captain America the First Avenger, and they kind of modified it a little bit, and it looked fine.
It was more tactical. But
yeah, you could kind of see where it came from. You could understand the like genesis of the costume, and it made sense. It looked cool.
Yeah.
It didn't look pathetic like the other one did.
I mean, some people would disagree and say it still looks ridiculous. But I mean, I thought it was fine. I know a lot of people didn't. So yeah, case in point, really, you can't. Not everything translates.
You could put like the Goblin in his actual suit, but it wouldn't look very good. It would look kind of stupid.
I think it'd take a lot of imagination that is beyond us, really, to pull it off. I mean, you never know, they might surprise you. You know, one day they might remake these films again and do it, but I don't know.
It would take very like inspired costume design to make it look menacing without it looking stupid.
And kind of going off, on topic, but not Spider-Man, the next Batman, there's kind of rumours that they're going to go with a kind of grey sort of look to it and a sort of traditional cowl rather than sort of armour-plated like we've always seen since the Tim Burton ones. That's another example, you know, how's it going to work? Because I've seen like fan films, there was that, was it Night's End or something, where he fights Alien and Predator.
Alright, yeah.
It was pretty good, but it looks ridiculous, but it was quite good for a 5-minute film. So, again, you know, what they do in comics don't always translate, but the Green Goblin was done well in this. I liked it a lot. Yeah,
basically you get his, like, basically he comes home to see his father tells him, yeah, you may hate me, but I was dying of a sickness, and you got it too. It's genetic. You're gonna die the same way I do. But this is all the research I have. This, is if there's any chance of saving you, it's on this kind of disc he gives him.
Kind of good luck and
Yeah.
see you later, but and then he dies.
Yeah. They also introduced like an assistant character to Harry, basically called Felicia. Now she's not listed with like a surname, so I don't know if this is actually going to be Felicia Hardy or not.
Yeah.
However, she was like a major love interest of Spider-Man, who I think in the comics did come after Gwen Stacy, because she was basically this playful thief type character, kind of like basically their version of Catwoman, who kind of lured him out of his shell a little bit. So I don't know if they're going to do the same thing here, or if it's just coincidence that this assistant happened to be called Felicia.
But
Though it would be a little bit like having... Well, yeah, but I could also easily see her wearing a wig or dyeing her hair when she's in costume.
Could be to throw you off,
Yeah. Like I say, it could just be coincidence, but it'd be kind of like introducing a character into a Batman thing called Vicky Vale, and then having a go nowhere kind of thing, or, like having a character called Grayson that's ultimately nothing to do with Batman and nothing, isn't going to be Robin or whatever. It'd be a bit weird.
Yeah.
Could be, but I don't know, that's pure speculation.
As for Electro, anyway, I thought it was pretty cool looking. And the sound as well that he had when he talks, he had a real kind of crackly...
Yeah. Kind of when he starts off, he's basically just like an obsessed, like, loner loser type who works for Oscorp, who's like the... He's like basically like a really complex electrician. He's not just like Joe Blogg's electrician, he's like the specialist electrician. But he gets kind of shit on because he's always got like lots of good ideas for things. Other people just tend to take credit for it, and he's just like a nobody kind of maintenance guy who's like, right, well, you're going to fix this like late at night with no help.
You can pretty much get out of his character just from watching the trailer exactly, what he is in the film. But it was very good. I like just visual and the, like,
in
the
a lot
sound.
of ways, I would say people who kind of complain there's too many villains in this. Electro is the main villain. Electro is the threat throughout most of it. He fights him, and you do get like the feeling that Spider-Man's trying to help him, because he does kind of get that this guy is like screwed up and needs help rather than like taking down hard. But kind of cops get in the way and basically like loses his shit, and like Spider-Man has to like stop him.
And Spider-Man knackers his electricity breaks his web thrower as well.
Yeah, because basically he figures that out at the end. Because in the last fight, he's got his web shooters like working even with the like electricity going on. Because it also establishes that his webs are kind of like conductive, which is a bit of a problem for him at times. But it's ultimately how he partially solves the problem.
But the Harry Osborn kind of enlists Electro's help to get Spider-Man.
Yeah, he kind of gets backstabbed by somebody else at Oscorp and gets kind of thrown out in his ear with nothing, and he's got no like future prospects, but he finds out that though the spiders from the first one were killed after the whole like Curtis Connors like craziness, they did keep the venom before they killed them, so they could theoretically use it later.
And he needs Spider-Man's blood because he thinks he might help cure him.
Yeah, but Peter Parker's like, I can't give him my blood because it's most likely going to just kill him.
And you don't want to do that to him,
but he just basically sees it as like Spider-Man like basically turning his back on him and like...
But he says I'm going to die anyway, so you might as well give it to me, and I think Peter Parker doesn't want that guilt.
It's also the case if he doesn't want to create another Curtis Connors.
Yeah, because he did that in the first one, so I think that's a good point.
He like helped Kurt Connors like finish his thing, and that's what led to the death of like Captain Stacy and a ton of people getting turned into monsters and stuff. So, okay, he managed to turn them back, but he obviously doesn't want to be responsible for that again.
But Harry Osborn does get the... what is it? Is it actually... It's not called Venom, is it? It's like
No, it's basically
serum.
spider venom. It's not nothing to do with the Venom symbiote.
Yeah.
That's nothing to do with that.
So he gets that injected and he kind of gets all messed up. You don't really see exactly what's happening to him. You just kind of see he's getting kind of... like
basically he gets into this armour that had already been like established as like this tactical armour that increases your strength and your speed. And it also has like a healing subroutine to like help stabilise you and patch you up if you were hurt. Because basically when he's like freaking out and dying after taking the injection of spider venom, he basically climbs into that, and that seems to like stabilise him. So even though he's like crazy goblin face, like with sharp claws and stuff, he's not dying at the moment.
He's got a nasty face when you do see him as well. It was
Yeah.
good how they did it. I did
It's
like it.
basically, after Spider-Man, like the big, what you think of as a big climactic fight of the film where he beats Electro, everything seems to be sorted, and then the Goblin just hits him, you know.
And this is the real kind of ending of the film. I think this was what they really handled quite well, but I'll let
Yeah.
you give this away. It's
Basically,
big spoiler coming up.
If you, seriously, if you're going to watch the film, I would watch the film before you keep watching this bit, because throughout the film, they do keep teasing this fact, but they kind of keep you guessing. They don't make it clear whether they're going to do it or they're not going to do it. But basically, Gwen Stacy falls down like this clock tower, he webs her, she hits the floor. It's like he stops her, but it's just too late, her head kind of like smacks the floor.
And a little girl in the cinema sat behind us went, "Is she dead?" Like that. It was fucking horrible.
Yeah, like I say, I was actually, cause I mean, you know for a fact Gwen Stacy is a character that dies.
Yeah.
But you were thinking, like, are they going to tease us with like a confrontation and then they're going to keep her alive?
I thought they were leading up to it because there was a lot of this, like, she's going away, and then there was her saying, "Look, I'm staying, I'm helping you here, this is not your choice to make," kind of thing. So you knew that you wouldn't want, because they didn't want you to hate Spider-Man thinking, well, he kind of brought her into this, he got killed.
Because that's one of the reasons I thought maybe they'll, like, wimp out from actually killing her.
Yeah.
Especially if they were going to use, like, Mary Jane in the future.
Yeah, which apparently is planned. I think they did film scenes, we were reading.
Yeah, well, basically reading on the trivia, they had planned scenes, but they decided to cut because they already had too many characters. And also, they wanted to focus on Gwen. Gwen is the main love interest of these films. To the point where they might not actually have Mary Jane in it.
Yeah,
because she comes into the Spider-Man mythology a bit later on, because Gwen Stacy's his first love, and it's a while after she dies that he meets Mary Jane. Because he's actually had like 4 or 5 different girlfriends before he met the love of his life, Mary Jane. One of them being Gwen Stacy, the girl he never got over. There's like a chick called Debbie who I think like her boyfriend beats her or something that he kind of had a thing for. There's like this older reporter chick at the paper he had like a thing for, but that wasn't really reciprocated. There's Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. So they could theoretically not bring Mary Jane into these films, especially if they're going for he's young, this is the start of his career, that's for his future kind of thing.
Well, we know there's 2 more films planned. There's one in 2016, one in 2018, which I think they're going to cap off with the Sinister Six. And God knows if they're going to keep it going.
They're certainly building towards the Sinister Six, I think.
Oh, they are, yeah.
Because, well, I mean, definitely from the way the film
yeah.
puts it is what I'm saying. Because they even have like this bit after the end, after he's like, Gwen Stacy died and Harry Osborn's in jail. Basically, they actually do this quite clever because the last 10-15 minutes of the film is Spider-Man kind of screwed up. He's in mourning, he's at Gwen's grave. They seem to do a lot of that sort of stuff you'd expect would be in the next film at the end of this film. I think so. It's not going to drag down the next film with them him being like crippled and giving up being Spider-Man and stuff. Instead, they kind of have the last part of this film with him like having given up being Spider-Man. He goes to like Gwen's grave. He's like a bit messed up and so forth. They do it really well. And basically, at the very end, you see like Ravencroft Institute, which is kind of Spider-Man's version of Arkham Asylum, and you see the Green Goblin in there, like talking to this like basically an employee. I don't really know. The guy could be from the comics. I don't really know enough to positively say one way or another about that. But he's basically talking about like there's everything in special projects you need. With the spider out of the way, we can, you know, we can do this. We can build up the more of them kind of thing. Yeah, basically, he refers to this assistant he's working with, who he refers to as Gustav Flyers, who's actually played by...
Yeah, it's interesting. He's played by Michael Massey, who he was in The Crow. I think he was the actor that actually accidentally killed Brandon Lee when he shot him. He's been in a few other things. We don't get to see his face, but I did recognise his voice. And he's playing this character called a gentleman.
Yeah, Jesus Christ walks into a bar.
Yeah, that was the scene.
Hands him 3 nails and says, "Can you put me up for the night?"
Yeah, that's in The Crow. You might remember him from that, but he's called Gustav Flyers, and it does actually say that's his name in the film as well.
Yeah, apparently he's all to do with the Sinister Six. He's not somebody I actually really know much about. But
we had to look it up basically, but that's who he is, because there was a big obviously question from the end of Spider-Man 1, because you saw him in the end credits of that talking to Kurt Connors in prison. That is who the character is. It's Gustav Flyers.
And it basically shows this scene of him walking through the special projects area of Oscorp, and you see these robotic tentacle arms, which are like Dr. Octopus, and these mechanical wings, which are like the Vulture, and basically getting to the Rhino armor, which is then given to the Rhino, and basically kind of through the passage of time and some things that Aunt May tells him, and this video recording of this speech Gwen had given earlier in the film, he basically decides that he has to do what he does to help people, or else what she died for would have been basically meant nothing. So
yeah,
he basically puts the suit back on and he goes back out and he takes on the Rhino.
That's pretty much how the film ends, with him kind of flying towards him and to be continued, not directly continued, but
yeah, like I say, Rhino's basically just a punk. You wouldn't really work a film around him.
Nah.
Not without completely changing the character to the point he wouldn't be recognisable.
I know there's a big concern with this that it was going to be overcrowded with villains like Spider-Man 3, but even if it was, it can still be done. But
yeah, this basically was in no way the case. Harry Osborn is just somebody that comes in right at the end. The main bad guy is Electro. And in some ways this seems more of a prequel for whatever Harry Osborn does next.
Yeah.
Like I say, he ends up at the end in Ravencroft Institute, which is kind of
Marvel's Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, well, certainly Spider-Man's kind of... It's something I remember from the 90s cartoon, and it's something I remember from other things. I'm pretty sure that's where they locked up Cletus Cassidy, the guy who was Carnage.
But that's pretty much the film anyway. We're going to just mention the end credits, the bit that's kind of into the end credits. We didn't stay till a bitter end, but I don't think there's anything there. If there is anything there, let us know in the comments. But yeah, it's a very surprising bit in the end credits, because I hadn't looked this up, so it took me by surprise.
Worth waiting for.
Yeah, nothing to do with the film at all. It was a preview for the X-Men film, which was really surprising because Spider-Man is Sony.
That would be X-Men Keys Days of Future Past.
Yeah, X-Men, yeah. People are going to get the X-Men Keys reference.
I don't care!
We're explaining all these private jokes that we had in our mental, private lives or whatever. That sounds a bit wrong. But anyway, yeah, so it's preview for X-Men Days of Future Past, which is 20th Century Fox. This is Spider-Man is a Sony picture, which is competing with each other pretty much. So why would they do that? Well, kind of got an answer for that. I had to look this up, and apparently what it is, Mark Webb was...
And incidentally, I did remember that name.
Yeah.
I remember that name perfectly. We just didn't have that on film.
Good Spider-Man director name, Mark Webb. Really
yeah, you couldn't get somebody better name.
Probably just got the job because of that. But yeah, basically he was on a contract...
Well, that's why I remembered it, because I was like, Mark Webb, seriously? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, he was on a contract with 20th Century Fox to do another film, and 20th Century Fox released him from his contract so that he could do Spider-Man 2, under the condition that in Spider-Man 2 they did, in the end credits, this preview trailer almost section for X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, I read that online, so it must be true. There's no doubt, it must be true. I mean, but I read it on a fair.
It's certainly something that I could. Well, it was also on the IMDb thing, so it's in two separate places.
Alright, yeah.
Which does strongly...
It makes sense.
I mean, yeah, these are things that people can edit and so forth, but usually when it shows up in more than one place, it's usually... You give it some credibility, at least.
Yeah, because
these
films are in competition. I mean, they're going to be released within a month of each other, pretty much, and they're both directly kind of competing types of films, so... I mean, they're produced by Marvel, I guess, and they've got Avi Arad working on there and stuff. So, but yeah, it was interesting to see the scene itself that was in the end credits. Wasn't really much. Was it Havoc, Stryker, and also what's the name? I can't remember the bloody name. One of the shapeshifts. Mystique.
Raven Darkholme.
Yeah.
Ha! Got those names right.
Yeah. and they're basically like in a hangar or some military hangar.
Yeah, because basically there's like two army guys arguing. One's saying like these guys are going home, and he's like, no, they're not. They belong to the army now, kind of thing. Basically, they're obviously mutants because there's one guy with like spikes all over his body and so forth.
Yeah.
And basically, it turns out one of the army guys is Mystique, who basically offs the guy and is like, right, you guys are coming with me. And there's like a couple of soldiers that come up and like the guys fight back. Because you see Havoc kind of blast one of them kind of away. And he's basically like, where's Magneto? And she's like, I'm on my own now. And you basically see them getting on a plane somewhere and her walking off and shape-shifting. That's pretty much the entirety of the scene. It's quite interesting. It's like... Yeah, it's like a couple of minutes of the film.
If that. But
it's quite intriguing.
Yeah, it's strange because it's not part of the franchise. They're in continuity with each other at this point. I don't think they'll ever connect as long as...
Yeah, I think maybe it's just trying to be like the kind of... Maybe ganging up together a little bit against the kind of juggernaut that's become like the Avengers franchise.
Yeah.
With all the like connected Marvel films that sort of throwing each other a bone in like, you know, connecting these two in the most like distant
possible
out
way.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's have a trailer in the film, and then that's about as close as collaborating as we're going to get. But yeah, I can see why. I can see that being true anyway about Mark Webb being under contract and putting this in the film.
Yeah, it certainly seems credible to me.
Yeah, so I think that's saying that we've kind of rambled a bit too long, so I don't want to make the video too long, but that's pretty much it. I like the film. I'm not a big Spider-Man film fan, based on the original trilogy, but these really have kind of got me wanting to see the next one, so it's good stuff.
Yeah, I've liked both these films. Yeah, I would have seen the first one at the cinema, but I was very burnt out. It was like, why do we need more Spider-Man films?
Yeah, I think it was around the time of The Dark Knight, right? I think as well. So
and in some ways, I still have that kind of feeling of like, did we really need these films? I don't know, but they're good films, so I'm not going to like complain at them. And like I say, I definitely like the actors in these a lot more than I did in the other ones. So that's a definite plus up for them.
Yeah.
And you know, with them being more recent, the special effects are better. You know, I don't hold that against the older films because they were probably as good as you were going to get at the time. But in some ways, these feel, you know, better done.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least certainly in that way.
But yeah,
and like I said, they don't redo the same, you know, things as each other, so it's kind of good for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some ways they did, but they had to, like killing Uncle Ben and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but those are the kind of things, kind of the tent poles you can't really, like, change those. You can't move the goalposts. They have to stay there. But stuff that they didn't need to redo were kind of either glossed over, like the J. Jonah Jameson thing, or, like I said, they just haven't even shown Mary Jane yet, and whether they will or not is pretty much up in the air. I mean, they could not, they could do...
Well, they had an actress and they filmed scenes, from what I understand, and they just didn't include it, because it would have taken away from the Gwen Stacy thing. If you had another girl kind of on the side, or potentially in the future kind of thing, would have taken away, so pretty good idea.
Like I said, maybe I could see it coming in, like, the fourth film.
Yeah.
Maybe giving him the third film to get over Gwen Stacy, unless they decide they need, like, a female love interest to sell the film for some reason.
Yeah, probably be studios like, well, we'll say, no, you've got to have that because that's what the audience expect. But yeah, anyway, I think that's pretty much it. Unless there's anything really else we want to add to it.
No, I think that pretty much sums it up.
So if you go to brandxreviews.com, there's other reviews on there, mostly Marvel stuff at the moment. We've just really been kind of inundated with all Marvel stuff.
Enough Marvel stuff. Yeah, we will probably be doing Days of Future Past after we've seen
that. Is that 22nd of May or something?
22nd, 23rd, something like that. I think we were going on the 23rd because that's when I was off.
Yeah, well,
I think it's out on the 22nd.
Yeah, cool. Well, we'll
I promise no more like in jokes. I've just been a bit indulgent with it being my birthday. We're going to behave on that, I promise.
So, but yeah, no, we're going to enjoy some Romulan ale later on anyway. Like I said, this was a birthday reference. Got it for his birthday. Pretty much just random energy drink. They actually told me in the shop as well you had to be over 18 to buy it.
Well, it is one of the strongest alcohols known to the Federation.
Just because it has the word ale on it, it must have some kind of restriction, like saying because children might drink it, pretend it's alcohol.
It amuses me to all hell that actually exists.
Yeah, they have a lot of other ones, like Ghostbusters, like slime ones and stuff. They're like £2.99, which is a bit expensive. But
yeah, they're ridiculous, but I wouldn't get it again. But just that it exists amused me.
Funny. That's it anyway. So like I say, brandxreviews.com, and we'll see you for the next one. So catch you later. There's one thing we forgot to mention in the
Yeah, you know when I said we're not going to have any more in-jokes? I lied.
Yeah, there's going to be a tough reference.
The core lies. The core always lies.
There's a bit in the film where Gwen Stacy says she's moving to London to go to university. Is it Oxford University or something?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Basically, Spider-Man's like, yeah, I can go with you. There's crime in England, right? And I just looked at him when I was making this joke from this old like comedy skit, like, well, yes, we've got hooligans in England. You're like, damn it, the toughest crime spree is now over.
Yeah, exactly. So that was another in-joke we couldn't really throw in the video because we're not going to know who Topher is. It's just a friend we used to have that stole a lot of DVDs off us.
Fat, thieving bastard.
Yeah. How many DVDs did he steal off you? Is it
Like a lot.
38 or something?
You may actually know him because he's really, like, obvious. Kind of greasy, curly hair, glasses, kind of really fat, walks like he shat himself.
Yeah. No,
he's
he's lost a lot of weight.
he's a bit of a legend.
But yeah, if you live in our town, which...
But yeah, beware, you got very lucky there, Topher. Spider-Man was coming for you in your crime spree.
Yeah, exactly. So...
Although then again, I think the Rhino's a bit like a step up from the Topher, to be honest.
Pretty much, yeah, but not much. Anyway, that was
then again, if the Topher was running at you, I would be scared.
Yeah, that would be. I think it'd be a pretty short gang battle. Anyway, that's the review, so... brandxreviews.com.